Ladies and gentlemen, something unthinkable just happened in West Palm Beach. The Secret Service has uncovered what sources are saying is a sniper-style perch. This is a hunting stand that's aimed directly at the spot where President Donald J. Trump exits Air Force One. Let that sink in. The man who restored our economy, rebuilt our borders, and now leads America's comeback, targeted again. And as the FBI rushes in, Democrats are losing their minds for a completely different reason, because at this exact same time, their so-called No Kings protests completely collapse in the chaos. Fewer people, weaker messaging, violent rhetoric on camera, and total embarrassment for the party that swore that they would stop Trump. But that's not all, guys. The shutdown, this particular shutdown that they engineered to hurt the president, it's blowing up in their faces. Polls are shifting, the media is panicking, and their entire narrative is crumbling faster than they can even rewrite the headlines. So tonight, we're going to connect every piece of this puzzle, the sniper scare, the failed protest, the backfiring shutdown, to reveal the bigger story that no one in mainstream media will dare touch. Because make no mistake, this is not random. This is desperation, and it's all happening under the watch of President Trump, a man that they still can't stop. Buckle up, guys. Hit the like button, subscribe. This one will sting, I promise you. So just hours before President Trump was scheduled to land in West Palm Beach, Secret Service agents made a very chilling discovery: a makeshift hunting stand hidden high in the trees, positioned with a perfect line of sight straight toward Air Force One's deplaning zone. Now, the area was locked down instantly. Agents formed a perimeter, scanning for any sign of the person who might have built it. Locals say no one hunts in that part of Palm Beach. This is a suburban corridor, not a forest. So this makes this setup almost impossible to dismiss as a coincidence. So here we are in a world where 1 second can completely alter history. The timing was just too close for comfort. You know what I mean? Drop an amen down below if you're glad that the Secret Service identified this before President Trump was impacted. Well, guys, the good news is they did catch it before it could be used. The bad news is it could have been sitting there for days now. Who knows? So how many near misses like this have to happen before we admit that the threats against this president, and they're very real and they're very far from being random, right? So within minutes of this report, the FBI took operational control. Investigators flew in evidence recovery teams, cell phone analytics units, and ballistic specialists. They coordinated directly with the DOJ counterparts and briefed President Trump's security staff at Mar-a-Lago. Kash Patel confirmed that the Bureau, the FBI, and Secret Service are now using digital forensic tools in order to map every device that pinged near the site in the last 72 hours. Now, that's not bureaucracy. This is precision. This is the new Trump era security doctrine. Act fast, share the intelligence, and close every gap before the story leaks. Now, if you compare that to the sluggish responses of past administrations, that would have been easily buried under his ongoing investigation flag, right? So instead, this team moved in daylight. It shows a commander-in-chief whose law and order message isn't just talk. It is clearly culture. The agencies that once fought turf wars are now moving as one protective wall around the president of the United States. Millions of seniors today across the United States, they're getting a startling notice from their doctors saying that we will no longer accept your insurance next year. Call Chapter to get your new coverage. Now, if you could save money, keep your doctor, and gain benefits at no extra cost, wouldn't that make sense? So this is what most people discover after reviewing their Medicare plan with Chapter. This is why I partner with Chapter, guys. They use common sense in order to help people navigate Medicare without pressure. Now, one of our viewers, she said, Chapter made my Medicare decision feel like the easiest choice I've made in years. So let me ask, doesn't it just make sense to do what most people already are? Now, most people are dialing that number right there on the bottom of your screen, or they're visiting askchapter.org/Ron. That phone number again is 909-563-8279. So the latest discovery isn't an isolated scare. This is a part of a disturbing pattern that has been unfolding ever since President Trump returned to the White House. You guys remember Butler, Pennsylvania, when a would-be assassin opened fire at a rally? Anybody remember that? Drop a Butler down below if you remember that one. Or how about the earlier attempt in West Palm Beach when a suspect was caught stalking the golf course perimeter with a rifle scope? Oh, wait, hang on. Isn't this the same city as when that happened? Now, both cases ended with arrests, convictions, and barely a whisper from the networks. The message from the radical fringe has been the same. If you can't beat them, silence him. Every time they fail, the coverage fades and the questions vanish. So how long can that keep happening before someone calls it what it really is? A coordinated campaign of hatred against a sitting president, right? I mean, the public feels it. Fear, anger, disbelief, it is all boiling over. I know you guys feel it. And so it's kind of raising one very chilling question across America today. How many more warnings will it take before anybody admits that this is organized and not just some random act? Now, while the agents are still processing the sniper site, Democrats, they're dealing with a humiliation of their own making. Their much touted No Kings protest, this was a nationwide spectacle meant to show defiance. It collapsed before it even began. Organizers bragged about millions of people being in the streets. What America actually saw, though, were empty plazas, confused chants, and recycled drone footage that was like from old climate marches. Local reporters exposed the fakery within hours. The optics were brutal. Paper crowns, pre-printed signs, and activists shouting slogans that they clearly couldn't even understand. I mean, it was laughable at best. So what was meant to look like a movement ended up looking like a meme. Even left-leaning outlets quietly admitted turnout was below expectations. They shouted "No Kings" while begging for attention from the very media royalty that they claimed to despise. But in the end, their stage-managed uprising fizzled into a clip show of awkward interviews and some really bored onlookers, a protest that crowned itself a complete failure. Now, before we move on, I want to hear from you. What is the single biggest challenge that you're having right now breaking out of the paycheck to paycheck cycle? Drop it down below because the struggle connects directly to the chaos that we're exposing here today. Now, if you needed proof that the No Kings movement was built on emotion, not logic, just listen to the people that they have put in front of the cameras. Now, one of the protesters completely froze when asked why she was marching, stammering, I don't even think I should be doing this interview. Another one said she disagreed with a lot of decisions, but couldn't really name a single one. Now, guys, I don't know about you, but clearly these were not activists. These were just echoes of whatever headline that they were reading that morning. So when asked about healthcare for illegal immigrants, one woman admitted that she wasn't sure if it was even true, but supported it anyway because everyone deserves healthcare. I don't know about you, but that is clearly not conviction. That is conditioning. Decades of spoon-fed outrage from corporate media, it has replaced critical thought with emotional reflex. These people aren't thinking. They're repeating what they've heard. They have been trained to react, not to use reasoning skills. And this is why the No Kings message collapsed the moment that someone simply asked a basic question. So then came the part that really just turned stomachs nationwide. Protest footage surfaced of speakers openly calling for blood. And I quote, "Grab a gun, turn it on ice, wipe out the state machinery," end quote. One person shouted this into a megaphone. Another person proudly declared he'd, quote unquote, kill Nazis, naming senior Trump advisors as targets. Now, this wasn't anonymous online chatter. This was broadcast live from the city squares. Now, the question that every law-abiding American is asking today is, will there be arrests for inciting violence? We all know the answer. If a conservative had said half of that, SWAT teams would have sworn in before sundown. But when it's a left-wing protester, complete silence, no coverage, no outrage, crickets, no accountability. The same politicians who preach unity, they are watching their supporters threaten murder in broad daylight, and they're getting away with it. And they're pretending like it never happened. That double standard right there, guys, this is rotting the rule of law from the inside out, and millions of Americans are finally noticing. So with their protests flopping and footage of violent rhetoric spreading like wildfire, Democrat leaders are scrambling to redirect the story. Their answer? Blame Trump for the government shutdown. The same politicians who pushed the stunt that froze paychecks and closed offices are now claiming it's the White House's fault. The facts are catching up really fast. Even left-leaning anchors are admitting the truth. It was Democrat obstruction that triggered this standoff. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries gambled that public pain would become political leverage. But Americans are way too smart for that. In fact, gas prices are down, the markets are stable, and confidence in President Trump's leadership is growing. So instead of crushing his approval, the shutdown narrative is collapsing under its own hypocrisy. Democrats can't control the message anymore. The media spin machine is stalling, and the harder that they push, the more obvious it becomes. They're running out of excuses at this point. Then, of course, came the interview that blew the entire lid off. On ABC, Hakeem Jeffries, he was asked point blank, if Republicans gave you everything you wanted, your priorities, your healthcare subsidies? Would you vote to reopen the government? Hakeem Jeffries' answer was a flat out no. Now, that single word exposed everything. It's not about protecting families or workers, it's about power. Democrats are hoping that Americans would feel enough pain to blame Trump. But instead, they revealed themselves as the architects of the chaos that we're seeing here. Their refusal to compromise, even when offered victory, showed that it was sabotage, not principle. Across social media, that clip is being replayed as the moment that the mask slipped. Everyday voters are realizing that this shutdown it's not the president's doing. This is political theater staged to smear him. And now the backlash is spreading faster than any talking point can contain it. In fact, the stunt designed to wound President Trump has turned into a self-inflicted political fracture. So while Democrats spiral and pundits panic, President Trump remains unshaken. When asked about the chaos, he didn't flinch. He laughed. They're kamikaze pilots, he said. Lunatics with no future and no message. And he's not wrong. I mean, his confidence projects exactly the opposite of their hysteria. Where they scream, he stays measured. Where they threaten, he talks policy. And the contrast is exactly what keeps winning people over, because Americans can spot real leadership even through the noise. President Trump's focus stays on border security, tax relief, and restoring strength abroad. Meanwhile, his opponents burn time and credibility on optics. In an era of outrage, addiction, calm is power. He's turning every attack into fuel, every headline into proof that he is still the threat that they cannot control. To his base, this isn't arrogance, this is steadiness. To his enemies, it's infuriating. But either way, guys, it's clearly working. I mean, you can feel the tide turning right now. Polls show independents shifting toward Trump's law and order stance, especially after the footage of those violent No Kings agitators went viral. Even people who don't even love his personality are saying, well, at least he's keeping us safe. That is the emotional pivot that Democrats fear the most. The images are spreading across X, Truth Social, and Rumble, and they're not coming from newsrooms. They're actually coming from citizens with phones, smartphones, showing exactly what legacy media hides. People are watching mass rioters threaten violence while blaming a president who's literally under threat himself. I mean, the hypocrisy is absolutely stunning. Moderates who once tuned politics out are waking up. They're realizing it's not Trump dividing the country. It's the people rooting for his downfall. When the truth starts traveling faster than propaganda, perception shifts permanently. That is what is happening right now, and the establishment just can't stop it. The mood across conservative America right now, it feels electric. From town hall diners to Capitol offices, there's this renewed sense of unity. And it's all because Democrats keep overplaying their hand. Republicans, once divided, are rallying behind the president in defense of truth and stability. Meanwhile, you've got Democrats, they're out there, fracturing in real time, moderates begging for sanity, radicals screaming for attention. The No Kings failure and the shutdown embarrassment, they have exposed a full-blown identity crisis. And they can't even decide whether or not they're fighting for votes or fighting for headlines. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, investigators are already tracing the money that's behind those protests, asking whether, activist networks funnel taxpayer funds in order to keep the outrage machine running. Now, if that trail leads to where many people expect, this could become one of the biggest political scandals of the decade. In fact, the party that accused everyone else of corruption may soon be forced to look into the mirror, and they're terrified of what they're going to see. So when you step back and you look at all of this stuff, right? You got the sniper scare in Florida, the failed No Kings protest, the shutdown unraveling, the collapsing polls. It really paints one picture: desperation. They tried chaos, they tried fear, and now they're running out of moves. The sniper stand symbolizes just how extreme their hatred has become. So while the protests show how empty their ideas really are, it's really a double disaster for a movement that once called itself the future. The real threat right now isn't just physical violence, it's intellectual decay, the surrender of reason to rage. And that's what Trump's fighting against every single day. This isn't just about politics. It's about whether the truth still matters in America. The people see straight through their spin. They're tired of the lies. The tide has turned, and no amount of media cover can hide it anymore. The truth is surfacing, and this time they can't bury it. Like, subscribe, share this video. We'll see you next time.